You're listening to part 2 of a podcast on the homeowner's perspective to heat pumps. If you haven't listened to the first part of the conversation, go check us out on YouTube or Spotify. In the second part, we're going to discuss what it looks like for a homeowner to sift through different contractors and bids, as well as what contractors should provide to homeowners through that journey. Thank you for listening. So basically, the red flag is, why does a contractor hate a certain thing? You know, if it's just, oh, well, I've been in the industry 35 years and that new technology just doesn't work. That is a red flag. Whereas, I've put a lot of research into this or that, whatever it may be, and I've personally tested it myself, and this doesn't work, but this does. That's a very valuable piece of, as a homeowner, of, well, this contractor I can trust because they've given me reasoning. They've shown me data-driven decisions, instead of I just don't trust that because I read one article that said that it, was the equivalent of using a toaster to heat your home. It's like, that doesn't work. That's not actually data. And so, and for contractors, then have a reason, do the research. Just because you've been in the industry XYZ doesn't mean you don't need research. Actually, it means that you should know at this point that new technology does come out and does exist. You need to research. You need to put in the time to get some training on it. There's always some level of free or cheap training on certain things. There's these crazy guys, Blue Sky Training, that do some.
I've heard of that.
Anyway, and it's just usually even sometimes it's just one day. You only need to send one person one day, and sometimes even half a day, to get at least a little bit of information about this.
It's almost like a doctor. They might have they became a doctor 40 years ago. Medicine changes. You have to stay up with the research and the new techniques, the new medicine. It's kind of the same for an HVAC contractor. If you started 40 years ago, okay, you didn't start out with heat pump technology, but over the last 10 years, the technology has advanced so much with heat pumps that if they're not willing to continue their education and go to these free trainings, or even if they're not free, invest in yourself and your business and pay for some of these trainings, they're going to get left behind. And then they turn into the contractor that's like, these systems don't work. I've been doing this for 30 years. Trust me. Really.
When did they switch to high efficient units, right? They put those in. So it's not like, nope, I only put in 70%ers. Right? Now you put in the new technology for the gas side. Why wouldn't you try the electric side? And I think something that you said, Cam, is resonated with me, at least, is I have tried it myself. Right. That's something that we at Blue Sky and the rest of the companies here all try it. Right. How did it work? We try to get data on it, measure the outputs on heat, on electrical, all the things, so that it's negative 25. Does this keep up without a backup? Oh, dang, it does. That's awesome. Right. Which is actually something we found. So we've tried it. And when contractors say this a lot too, if they're just trying to look for an excuse, I think, is, oh, I've had a bunch of homeowners that didn't like this, and so I had to go take them out.
It's did you tell them how it was going to work?
Or
did you install it properly?
Did you install it properly? Right? You just go screw over a bunch of homeowners, and then you charge them again to take it out.
Did you oversize them 2 tons, and now now they're really unhappy with the product? Or that's your fault.
Undersize it. And then they're just running backup heat all the time. So now it's really expensive. Right. We see that too.
They're like, you told me electrifying would lower my bills, and now my electric bills quadruple the cost. It's because you're almost always in backup heat. That's on the contractor. That's not on the homeowner.
For sure. And it's not radical to expect this. I mean, if you brought a 2022 car to a mechanic and then they said, nah, you know what, I don't know. I'm not a car guy, so I'm just going to make something up. But your camshaft is dead. I'm actually going to put in a 1984 model camshaft into your 2022 car. Doesn't fit quite right and anything, but it'll be. I've been using it for years. You know, it's like you've been using it for years in 84 cars. So yeah, it's going to run well for the 84. But this is a newer, like we figured out some stuff since then. You know, it's just a different car. It's just not going to work. You wouldn't want a mechanic that didn't do a little time and research into your specific car and said, actually, I need to put this in, or like, this is the manufacturer recommendation for this. And
well, homes are different too. You know, we're building homes tighter, more efficient, better insulated. So it's not the same as a 1930s or 40s home that's leaky with no insulation. So we need this giant furnace to blast heat through the building just to help keep the person comfortable.
Yeah.
The mechanism in which a heat pump works, it's not doing that. It's not heating in that way. It's a much lower temperature over extended periods of time. Yeah. So it's you have to be able to change with the times, or your business just gets left behind.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
So that's I think useful for both homeowners and contractors. Homeowners or programs even too. Look for contractors that are going to do research. It's part of their business. It's like a normal business expense to improve. Teachers have to get renewed teaching licenses. Doctors have to renew. Yeah, like it's not an abnormal thing to ask. Then for contractors too, that means when you are communicating with homeowners, don't just say, I don't, they're just not good. Like, give some reasons, help the homeowners understand certain things, not oversharing, of course. Like, yeah, some homeowners aren't going to understand the total external static pressures. Yeah, like you don't need to use super technical terms. Just say like, hey, based on this data that I've pulled myself, like this is going to be better in your home. So yeah, that's the first thing when looking for contractors that I was able to notice of what contractors were saying, like, hey, I've actually done this research. And that's something that you can look on local boards and for programs as well. So narrowed it down. The next piece was that I kind of want to talk about a little bit is like the size of the company. And maybe this is just a small snippet, but there was one guy that had people had really good things to say about him. He was a rebate accepted contractor, tried to get a hold of him and just never got back to me, which I don't think was necessarily at fault to him. From what I could tell, it was just him running the company. And that's great. Those dudes are usually going to do excellent work, I would say. Not always, but I would say normally those dudes are going to do excellent work. It's just that he didn't have time, and that's okay. Sometimes those really small companies, that's something you need to be aware of, is like, if you have a problem with your furnace or heat pump in the future, it might take a little longer. And again, that's okay. Those dudes usually do great work, but that's one thing to look at. Whereas the flip side was the first company that I had come out and actually give a bid was so big that they had a lot of overhead. And so one, their bid was way higher. Two, I was in contact with 3 or 4 different people before I even got a quote, because one of them was the technician that did the diagnostic. And that was a totally different guy than the guy that gave me a bid. That dude was just a salesman. He didn't know any of the terms that I was asking him, like, what's the SEER rating of this? He's like, it's a high efficient unit. I'm like, what's the SEER rating? Well, we don't really use SEER rating. I'm like, it's a heat pump.
What you do.
Rating of the unit, you know, it's like, it's not a hard question. Let me call my engineer. Like, dude, you should know that if you're trying to sell me something. It was on the bid, so I ended up finding it, and everything. And you know, that's not an unrealistic thing. There's no reason that I should have to go through 4 different people to get something, to get a quote, not even an install, you know. And one of them didn't know it. The guy who was actually trying to sell me the unit didn't even know what unit he was trying to sell me. So that was rough. And sometimes that's a bigger company thing. And again, bigger companies can be great. They can do good work. It's just that tends to be an issue. And then who I ended up going with was on the smaller end. It was just, they had like 2 vans. So that kind of tells you something of like, they had 1 to 2 teams working each day. and just one office staff, and was able to get to me quickly, but still, maintain that smaller. And like a lot of times it's easier to maintain focus with a smaller company. I was talking to the guy, and I'll just shout out the name because I ended up going with them and they were great. Here in Oregon, it's Bruton Comfort Control. They're a little smaller of a company, but the thing that the owner was telling me, because he's the guy that came out to give me the quote, was I started the business because I was part of a larger business and they started gouging people. It didn't start out that way, but eventually they got big and they started gouging people and screwing homeowners over. And I didn't want to be a part of that. So that's why I started this company. And he had maintained that focus for 40 years of business, which is impressive. It's easy to lose focus.
Well, that's another perk of the smaller company is it's much more personalized. Like you say, Cam, you have the owner of the company coming out to give you the quote. You have one person in the office that you're communicating with, and it's not 3 different people funneling through the home to do the diagnostic, the quote, and then whatever else. It feels much more personalized and like they're actually catering to your needs as opposed to just trying to price gouge you.
Yeah. Well, everyone that comes, that you come in contact with the company like that, right, knows you, whether it's your situation or your house or, you personally, right? I don't think that necessarily matters in this case, but they know like the office person knows who you are, right? Because you've talked to her or him before, right? And then the owner knows who you are because he went out to your house. Right? So you don't have to explain things over and over and over because you are now talking to a new person.
And it was great. I went in, they were big enough to have an office. So that's another thing. Sometimes small companies just don't have an office. And again, that's okay. Those dudes usually are doing pretty good work, I would say, is at least my experience. But they were big enough to have an office, went into the office, said, I need to pay half my invoice. And they knew exactly who I was because they don't have a ton of projects going on. I told them that I would be coming in. They knew right away. And I was able to go in and actually talk to him and get to know him a little bit. And the lady at the office was well-trained on up-to-date rebates, nailed it. Like that's perfect. She had training in what she needed for the rebates. The dudes that were the technicians had training in what they were even trying to install in the home. So size of a company is something for homeowners to be aware of. And for contractors, if you're upscaling and you're growing your business, your original focus needs to stick, which your original focus was probably good unless you got in the industry thinking, I need to make a quick buck. I'm sorry, that company needs to die. I don't think that's brutal to say that company should be dead, So maintain the original focus and maintain the training. When you're first starting out, you have to scrap a little bit and you need to just know you need to do well. You need to do good. And you need to maintain that level of training as you upscale. So it is possible to upscale. You just need to maintain those things. Reviews, resources, all those things that I was able to pull from to get to the stage where I had multiple quotes and multiple bids on the table. Initial diagnostics were out of the way. I knew I needed a replacement. That was all good and done. My furnace and my air conditioner were both about 25, 26 years old. And so I also am at that point thinking too, like, this is not just going to be a furnace swap. The air conditioner is going to die too. So this is something I need to keep in mind. A heat pump's going to take care of both of those. If I was just going to gas furnace swap, I need a gas furnace and a new AC coil anyway. So that's going to be pricey. That's going to be probably more expensive than the heat pump at the end of the day.
100% it will be.
So that's good. Finally, now I'm at the point where I have bids, and this is where we can get a little bit of good, like best practices as I talk about these bids and everything. Jump in with like, oh yeah, we see this a lot. But essentially now I have the one guy that I just talked to on the phone, didn't make it out because I just knew it wasn't going to work off the bat. I had the one I didn't even get an answer from. I have a one from the much bigger company, and I have the bid in front of me. And then I have this other one that's, again, that Bruton was a medium size. They were on the smaller end, but had a physical office and a couple, the 2 vans. The first thing And I think it's the biggest thing that every homeowner is looking for is, of course, cost. What is this going to cost me? Well, one, you should always ask for multiple bids as a homeowner. And as a contractor, I would say as a best practice, like give multiple, because there usually are multiple options. And you can correct me if I'm wrong on that, but I wanted a bid of what would this cost? And this is just, I wanted to see what would this cost to swap gas furnace to gas furnace. I already had a 90%er, but it was, again, on the older end of 90% efficiency and up. What is it going to cost to just swap this gas furnace out? And that reveals something too about the different bids that I got. The bigger company was like $15,000 for just a gas furnace swap, which is really high. I mean, that's huge.
That much.
That's astronomical. And he was like, and this company too, by the way, was not rebate
friendly.
They weren't signed up for the rebate. So this dude was like, yeah, I can give you this rebate, but I'm probably going to eat that cost. You know, that's one of those things. It's like, well, I know you're going to eat that cost. Eat that cost, because the dude was, I mean, it was price gouging is what it was. Like, you're going to eat that cost because you're not actually an approved vendor for the rebate program. So yeah, you're going to eat that cost. Also, $50,000, you're not eating any cost. I know the system wholesale was like $4,500 or something for the actual system itself. Why am I paying triple whatever that for install? Like, and there's no way that's all just overhead. Like a lot of that is just like you're the salesman. You're going to make this commission off of this, which again is a normal business practice. I don't know. I go back and forth on that. Maybe you guys could say something about like commission on these HVAC sales, because it does give some incentive, but also it's kind of, sometimes it makes it really like scammy. You know?
It's definitely not necessary. I mean, that's really just a model these larger companies use. So in my experience, anytime we work with a smaller contractor, they don't have a sales team. It's people reaching out to them. They're doing their own, marketing or advertising, whatever it may be. But they don't have a sales team. It's the owner or the operations manager that's coming out and giving you a quote and explaining to you these things. They're not making commission off these systems. They're just making their money off selling you and installing the system.
Yeah, I think there's a couple different things there. I go back and forth on that kind of a system as well, because sometimes you need to do something like that to attract employees, where you can, and maybe it's just better for the company in general and not for the employee, but you can pay them less, but then you give them a commission. So that is kind of giving them more salary or more pay based on their performance, which I like. But a lot of times it becomes super scammy and super just kind of gross, right? They're pushy. They want to, like, you need to buy this, you need to buy it today. And so you end up getting the wrong system a lot of times with that setup, because they want to push the most expensive thing, or the thing that company is pushing right now, because they had 50 extra gas furnaces in the warehouse. And so they're giving extra commission if you can get rid of those. Right. So sometimes, and I think actually a lot of times with a situation like that, the homeowner is the one who suffers. Right. Because they're just trying to get whatever pays them the most. The salespeople are, right. And it's not necessarily an issue that the salespeople are, but it's an issue with the company culture in general.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that's where that lose focus kind of comes in. You want to help people, and then suddenly you don't. So yeah, that was the immediate. That was like the immediate tell for just a 1-to-1 swap. The other quote of the company I ended up going with for just a gas furnace swap was $6,000, which tells you everything you need to know right there. The one company was trying to price gouge. $15,000 compared to $6,000 is crazy. Like That's a crazy difference. And then I did end up talking to that guy from the bigger company a little later on over the phone when he followed up to say, hey, are you going to go with us? And I told him that. I was like, look at the price difference there. He's like, well, I could probably bring it down to 10. I'm like, $5,000 off just from a phone call, because you're going to lose this. Exactly. That tells me everything I needed. That 5,000 was going to be pocketed. Yep. And my friend, I'm sorry, you lost that sale because you were getting greedy. That's just how it is. And
being fair is a big thing that we don't see as often as, at least I think we would like to see it, right?
And it's important for those big companies to hear what you did, Cam, which is like, I got another quote and it was 150% cheaper than your quote. How can you justify this to me?
Yeah.
And they can't.
Right. They're like, well, we're going to give you 24-hour service. You know what? Yeah, the smaller company, it might not be immediate 24-hour service because they just don't have the capacity to do that. But they were going to give me the same warranties, and realistically, that big, huge cost difference, if it's just going to be a weekday fix compared to a weekend fix, dude, I will eat all day. Yes. All day I'll eat that cost. I could be uncomfortable for one. It'd be cheaper to get a hotel every year. If for some reason it went down every year on a weekend, I'd be cheaper to go to hotel for 12 years in a row, which is not going to happen. So there's no way it justifies that cost. I mean, this is just things we need to think about, as both homeowners and, again, contractors. Just think about it from a reasonable, logical standpoint of payback period, opportunity cost. Cost is something that I think we'll probably go into in future, and how to break down a bid and that kind of stuff as best practices for contractors. But I did just want to mention it because obviously it's probably the first thing that homeowners and contractors are looking at. How can I make money reasonably on this while still providing good service? And then from homeowners, how can I get cheap, but not too cheap, and be reasonable on cost?
Yeah. What's the balance?
Yeah. And so options for install, getting multiple bids from a homeowner perspective and making it somewhat of a standard practice for contractors, saying, hey, there's are multiple options. That's where an education piece comes in for homeowners. You can go with these things. It's not just this one way. Usually there are multiple options no matter what, even multiple system types are hey, this is where a good initial diagnostic comes in. Are you planning on insulating an air sealing if this is a quick install? Can we size down a system just a tad if you're going to be able to tighten up the home? This kind of stuff is this should be normalized, of these kind of conversations, these questions for the homeowners. We need to query the homeowner as contractors, and homeowners need to query the contractors and say, hey, realistically, this is what I need. I'm going to tighten my home. I'd rather size down than size up, and that's what we ended up doing just a bit on my system. We dropped from a 3-ton to a 2-ton. It didn't even need to be a 3-ton in the first place. A little bit high for what I was looking at, but we did drop that. And it ended up being actually, I think, 2.5-ton, but it was a fit model, so it's a little bit different for a heat pump. Those get they're very specific. Heat pumps can be pretty specific, so they do rely on a good manual J. And again, that's something we'll go into in future episodes, and homeowners maybe don't necessarily need to worry fully about those details. But
something that they do need to worry about, Cam, is asking for one.
Yeah. Right? Yeah.
I know, you have to have good inputs for it to mean something. But if a contractor tells you that they do not do manual J's, say thank you, and you can leave.
Yeah.
Right? They're not doing their job.
Right. Yeah. And I think, that is an initial thing. That's a good initial red flag of no, I'm not actually going to size the system, right? I'm just going to look at what could fit in this spot.
Yep. I was going to say the thumb method.
Yeah. The thumb, yeah. Yeah. And, so that's another huge thing. And I think this is a personal experience that I went through that a lot of homeowners would have some relation to. And as contractors, there can be something learned in homeowners. So the one dude that came in, I asked him for these multiple bids. Hey, I want a gas furnace swap bid. I want a bid on a heat pump with a gas furnace backup. And I want a bid for just the heat pump. these multiple bids. It's not asking too much to get 3 different bids. It's the same thing anyway, and when he came back, he basically, this first dude, the bigger company, said, I won't install a heat pump without a gas backup. And initially that's a bit of a red flag just based on what I know, especially where I'm at in the Pacific Northwest. You don't need a gas backup. Like, it's just, even without a cold climate, which in Colorado, you can roll in a cold climate without a gas backup. This might be shocking to hear for some people, but you can do it, and it's totally reasonable. And sometimes, I'll concede, sometimes maybe you want a gas backup, but you don't need it. And then especially where I'm at, I don't need it. And I asked him why. And he's like, well, because sometimes they'll lose efficiency. And this is what his words were. And there's a lot to unpack there, but you'll lose efficiency under 20 degrees. And again, I'm in the Pacific Northwest right now. I asked him, and this is how it exposed what, like, he was just trying to say. He was just trying to get the sale of the gas furnace. Like you said, Parker, that's probably the case I didn't even think about. They probably just had extra gas furnaces that they were trying to sell and everything. And that quote ended up being like $23,000 for the gas furnace heat pump, which sometimes is a reasonable bid for certain things, but for what he was doing, it was not at all. And he was like, well, and I asked him, how many days a year does it usually get below 20 degrees? He's like, well, 1, maybe 2. Like, dude, for 2 days a year at max, if it drops in efficiency but will still heat my home, why would I install this whole gas backup? He's like, well, the switchover temp would be 30. I'm like, again, even 30, 10 days a year, it drops below 30. People lose their minds if it goes sub freezing. That means it's below 32 degrees here. Like, there's no reason I should need a gas backup. And by the way, the system that he was even installing, he didn't even know well enough, because the manufacturer specification says that switchover temp should be 5 degrees. And it never gets below 5 degrees here. Like, it's not just a little bit of research. Even looking at the bid that he gave me for the unit that he was trying to install, switchover temp recommended was 5 to 15 degrees. And again, even 15, it never hardly gets below 15 here. Say it does 1 year, it's like, okay, I'll eat a little bit of efficiency to heat my home, or, whatever. There's other ways for that 1 day a year, if it even happens. So
there's something on that too that I've heard contractors say a lot, which, if you think about it, is pretty crazy. The gas backup thing, right? Yeah. I've heard contractors and homeowners that were misinformed, right? They're like, well, yeah, but what if the power goes out?
Dude, yeah, that one's huge. That one's crazy to me.
So there's an electronic board on your gas furnace. There's a motherboard, a actual electric blower on your gas furnace, right? Yeah.
So, igniter itself to get the flame going,
right? And the gas valves and stuff are generally electronic. Yeah. So if the power goes out, you don't have matter if you have gas or electric.
Yeah, and even if you manually light the flame, which can be pretty dangerous, by the way.
Definitely don't.
Not recommended at all. It won't blow throughout your home. You got to sit around it like a campfire, because the blower, like you said, the blower is electric. It's not going to heat your home anyway, dude. Like, if the power goes out, sucks to suck, kind of. It's like, it's just how it is. A gas backup is not going to help with power going out, and that is something that people really. That's mostly a homeowner thing. Is homeowners really don't understand. And you know what? I've run into contractors or just people that play into that. They know too. That's the unfortunate thing. They know if the power goes out, this gas furnace is not going to run, but I'm not going to tell them that.
Yeah. Right.
Dude, that's where education, you just got to be honest. And homeowners, if you hear this is honesty. Like, yeah, sorry, the gas furnace isn't going to fix it if a power goes out. Like, that's just not how those work, but withholding that information tells you something as a homeowner or a contractor. Even look, and I'm going to give the benefit of it out here. Contractors can lose focus. This might be the tell for yourself to where your heart's at, basically. Am I trying to purposefully withhold this information, even though it's going to screw someone over because it's going to make me more money? That's maybe a warning sign. Like, that's the bumper in the
bowling alley or the rumble strips on the road to like say, all right, I'm a little off course right now. I kind of need to veer back, because again, it's normal to veer off course. Like that happens. That's just who humans are. It's time to get straight again. It's time to go on the right path again. So, that might be even a personal tell of like, yeah, you find yourself doing that. So that was this first bid. He wouldn't even do it. He wouldn't even give me a bid for just a heat pump. That's a problem. The next dude that comes in, this is again, this Bruton comfort control. He comes in, and this is my own problem, my own conception. He was an older guy. And so I'm initially like, oh no, he's going to give me that. I've been in the business 30 years. I won't do a heat pump. And to this guy's credit, he was an older guy and he does his research, because he walks in and he had 30 or 40 some odd years in the industry. And he walks in and he looks at it before I even asked for bids. He's like, have you ever thought going to just a heat pump? I don't even think you need a gas backup. I'm like, all right, this guy, I already off the bat.
Green flag.
Doing better,
green flag. There you go.
Yeah, exactly. Already off the bat. And he's like, for your system, and this is another good tell. In my home, I don't have a gas backup. In my home, I have a heat pump. He had a mini split system and I wasn't getting a mini split system, but that didn't really matter at the end of the day, because he's like, in my home and in my office, I have installed these things and you do not need a gas backup. Like, it's just, why would I sell you that? Also, you're going to have to run, and this is how I really knew he was talking about. Also, you're going to have to run extra electrical wiring if we do a gas backup. So it's going to rack the price way up of the bid. And so that's where the first dude is like, he was going to have to run an extra wire to power both the gas furnace that actually uses electric, as we discussed, and the heat pump. So he's like, no, let's just do a heat pump. I'm like, all right, I like this guy better. Can you still give me the quote for a gas furnace swap? And he did, which was great. And he didn't try to sell me all this extra stuff that I didn't need. He just said, hey, this is what I would do in your situation, because I think it's going to be great. Let me size some stuff real quick. Like we were talking about, he was going to size properly. He wanted to look at the electric board, all this kind of stuff. Let me size your ducts properly. Make sure that the system can handle it. Let's go with this. Now, we could upsize to 3, or we could downsize to 2 to 2.5. He said 2 initially because he wasn't sure if we could do a 2.5, and we ended up being able to do a 2.5. But we could have easily downsized to 2, because I told him, hey, I'm going to insulate an air seal, and he's like, oh, great, let's not size up. There's no reason to do that, and that's just how I knew this dude instantly was way more trustworthy. The bid he gave, and this is not going to always be the numbers. When we talk about numbers in these, this is just, it's very variable. And my install was a fairly easy install, really easy access. It wasn't like in an attic or a crawl space. That will add to the cost because it's way harder to install. You're gonna need more guys, more time. And that was $10,500 because it had the instant $2,000 rebate with an option to then apply for another rebate after the fact, after it was installed. So already $13,000 for a heat pump system, less than the gas furnace swap that the other dude was going to do. Yep. And it was, and had that rebate, and he knew what he was doing. And that, for homeowners, especially when looking at opportunity cost, again, remember my AC was 25, 26 years old too. That was going to die. I mean, it was just a matter of time. So if I gas furnace swap, then I also have to factor in the cost of the gas furnace. But in the next year or two, the cost of the AC going out, so that's another whatever, $6,000. It was going to be more than a heat pump anyway, because the heat pump takes care of both. That's huge. You get an AC and heating basically with that, and it's going to be better at controlling moisture loads in your home, which is kind of a big deal for, like, especially in the PNW, the Northwest. Like, moisture is a bigger thing than in Colorado. In Colorado, you like need to add moisture sometimes to the home. So that's big. Do you guys have any thoughts on that? Like, contractors coming in, best practices for contractors or homeowners of like the education piece, and that kind of stuff. Dissect that a little bit if you would.
I mean, look, the running, helping to run programs or running programs and things, doing advising. And because we do so much of that, we see all of these different scenarios, right? The people who are the homeowners who tend to be happiest and understand what's going on with the system had a contractor that explained, yes, a heat pump is different, right? It heats at a lower temperature. and you have to do it for longer and all these things. And all of a sudden the homeowner now understands what they have got. And so they're happier with the system. They don't want to rip it out and put gas back in or anything like that, right? They just have the right information. So for any homeowners, I think it's great to get a contractor that will actually take the time to explain what they're getting and has the knowledge to explain what they're going to give the homeowner. And for the contractors, I think it's super valuable for callbacks, as well as, you know, your reviews, your ratings, all that word of mouth, all that kind of stuff.
Word of mouth's big.
Yep. And if you can explain the correct things, then the people are going to be happy with your install, happy with what they purchased, and then you get all of the benefits around that.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that's good. I think we'll look to wrap up, but that education piece that you just mentioned on the front end was great, and on the back end was also good, because even though there's a lot of stuff that I already knew, you know, I had the benefit of being in this industry and knowing some of these things going into it. So it was super helpful for me to be able to dissect this, but also allow me to experiment, pretend I know nothing, you know, and I'm like kind of revealing partially of what I know of the industry and everything, talking to these guys, like they, you know, like a normal homeowner, what does the education piece look like on the front end and the back end, you know? And the back end education with this company was great. There was maybe a few things that could have been added, I think, verbally, like the handout packet could have maybe been a little bit more inclusive of education. But besides that, the back end education, they walked me through the system, showed me the pieces, and talked about some of those heat pump differences of like, it's not going to be coming out 120 degrees or whatever at the supply, because it's trying to maintain temperature precision wise, not, like you said, blast it like a fire hose, you know, of heat. So that education was great. And I know that that's one of the biggest things of homeowners. So front end education, back end education, huge. Give them well as a contractor. Because even my wife the next day was like, "Hey, I thought our thing got fixed, but it feels like colder still coming out of the supply." I'm like, no, it's just how it is. Trust me, it'll heat the home well. Don't turn the thermostat up, because it's gonna feel really comfortable. And then what do you know, like 30 minutes later, it's real comfortable and even temperature instead of like hot, cold, hot, cold, hot, cold, you know, in the home. And so that piece, it's like, if freaked out, 30, you know, turn the thermostat way up. Oh, it's cranking the heat in here. Turn it way down. Oh, it's freezing. Set it and leave it, like set and forget, you know. And so that piece of education was really well done on the contractors end. And that's commissioning and education is something we'll continue to talk about for now. But that was my experience. I think it was maybe typical of homeowners. I think there's a lot to be learned from that on both pieces. Do you guys have anything else to say as we look to wrap?
I was just going to say just a real quick thing that, you know, we just created that course that focuses on new homeowners or practical homeowners who want to, you know, learn more about their current house and things like that. And so this is the kind of stuff that we go over in that. And I think it's just been really cool to see people actually go through that, and then the light bulb, you know, kind of come on, like, oh, that's what I got to do. Instead of just having a blank face, because they've never been trained. They've never been taught this kind of stuff. So it's been fun to, you know, create that course as we have within this. So
that was a super fun course to make. Just super practical. That's why we named it Practical Home Performance, is because it's just super practical, applicable. I'm going to make a shorter form video talking about this and probably add it to that course as well. Because we're at Blue Sky Training, we never stop improving, right? Throw that tag in there. Always training ourselves as well and trying to get better. But because we practice what we preach, kind of thing. But that's a great course. Chance, do you have anything?
No, other than if you're a contractor, sign up for the Blue Sky Heat Pump 101. If you don't know what these heat pumps are, how they work, sign up for the HP 101.
Yeah, not too expensive. Good training for not too much. And especially you can do it in person or online. I mean, hybrid's the way to go. You can kind of do it your own pace. Or if you're in Oregon, not in Colorado, maybe just online, you know, you have that, or whatever state, I don't know. All of the states besides Colorado and Wyoming. But
we have the mobile lab now, you know, so we can go places.
True. Yeah, you want some heat pump training to your whole company, you know, big company. That's one way to improve it, is get a ton of guys trained in something. Like, we got that is sweet, dude. The mobile heat pump mobile lab, fully equipped with some heat pumps, is tight. All right, sweet. Yeah, that'll wrap for this episode. We're gonna keep talking about these processes of heat pump installations, and I think they'll be useful again for all sides: program, contractor, homeowner. What are we experiencing through every step of the process? What's the cost? What's the initial bid look like? The initial education, moving through the installation, talk about some installation pieces, and then how do we send off well to not get callbacks and get word of mouth advertising. Thanks for listening. Blue Sky Training podcast, Home Performance Advocates. You can always listen to more on our YouTube or Spotify channel. And if you want to see more of our course listings, we will include a link to our website, blueskytraining.com, in this description. And you can see our full course list, some online, some in person. And maybe there's a training near you that you can sign up for to get that hands-on heat pump training and say, like, I've actually put my hands on this equipment to a homeowner, and it does work. We have the data that's provided in our classes as well. So thank you for listening, and
thanks, Cam.
Have a good one. Yeah.